Alrighty, so today we are going to be going over the top 10 sort of Dokkan Fest TURs. Now, as with the usual sort of format that we have adapted on over on this channel, and I feel like a lot of people kind of have because this game is so tightly contested in a lot of spots now that doing 1 to 10 is just, it leads to a lot of bad opinions and like poorly aging takes, right? Like pretty quickly, right? Where I'll put a character at 2 and then the character at 4 gets like 27,000 buffs, and before you know it, they're number 1. And it just leads to an environment where I just don't think that the discussion is productive or healthy regarding the characters, and it pits characters too much against one another, and it just doesn't lead to many good points. Or it's not that I don't make good points, it's that I feel like the argument to put a character at 7 and put a character at 8 isn't substantial enough to the point where it's like worth spending 8 to 9 minutes talking about why I think this character is 6 or why I think this character is 7. So that is sort of what we are doing here. Keep in mind for this video, what we are going to be doing is taking easy A's and super easy A's out of the equation. So as you guys can see, aside from Super Saiyan 3 Goku, these characters are all 2024 Dokkan Fest TURs, and this is basically like my final tier list for 2024 when it comes to the TURs, quote unquote, because yes, the Dokkan Fest for New Year's is going to be in 2024, but by the time I'm ready to evaluate those characters, it will more than likely be 2025, and we will be heading into the anniversary season. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this list. Now, starting off, we are going to look at the A tier, and I think that the A tier is going to be pretty simple. We're going to start with Frieza. He's the first character that I want to talk about. If you guys don't know how Frieza works, he is essentially a character that can put up some very impressive attack stat numbers, but he is very reliant on Terrifying Conqueror characters. Unfortunately, that category did not get the greatest set of buffs this year. Let's go ahead and take a look at that so I can tell you what I'm talking about. Okay, so it should jump off the page to you guys that the newest summonable LR here is Ginyu. And then the next 3 after that from 2023 onwards are all 3 free-to-play characters. Now, granted, you know, these characters you could talk about like being on the line for an easy A, and it's the same thing with Full Power Frieza here. Turles' easy A is very good. But when it comes to TURs, this team just didn't get the juice. This, like, aside from Slug, right? Like, which is not enough. Like, Slug is amazing. We'll be talking about him later. But Slug is not enough to round out a team of 6 here, right? Like, you have this Frieza, this, like, we're just going to kind of quickly round this up, right? Nothing Burger, not meant for Terrifying Conquerors. This is the LR. She's more peppy gals. He's very limited to, like, that Tremble and Fear Demon Awakens event. Haha. I have no idea what they do. And Slug is, like, really good, and then this Frieza and Cooler is cool. No pun intended. But like, you just kind of look here and you just see that this team did not get the buffs that it needed, right? So that is sort of why this Frieza, I think, is barely rounding out like A tier. Like, with easy A's, this guy's easily out of the top 10, but there's no easy A's on this one. So that is why I have him in the A tier. Let's move on to the next character in the A tier, which is going to be, let's go with Goku, Super Saiyan 3 Goku. Now, Super Saiyan 3 Goku, I think that this character is extremely well designed, right? I love the way that they did how they handled him. His standby is good. Offensively, he's got the guard and stuff, or defensively, he's got guard and stuff like that. This character works well with movie heroes. He works well in teams that need the help, right? Not movie heroes anymore, but you get what I'm saying. I think that he worked out really well. I like the way that the character was designed. I just don't see him any higher than like the 10 to 8 range, so that is why I have him down here in A tier. We'll just kind of quickly touch up on him. I think he's really good, but that's about it. So let's go ahead and move on to the S tier, and these are the borderline like 7 to 5 range characters that I'm going to have. And the first one that I have up on here is Rose. Now, Rose, it was an interesting case when he came out because we were not sure how he was going to be operating, right? Because we knew that he was going to be needing the Super Boss's help, and he came out on Global first, before even Broly was in the game. So, or the LR AGL Broly from the 9th anniversary, because you guys know how the schedule works, not anymore, but it did at the time. So, this Rose was in desperate need of Super Boss's help, and what did this Rose get? And Frieza, like, he's the sad Jordan face, right? Because this guy, if we pull up Super Bosses, let's just make this quick, right? If we go right here, with Super Bosses, this team got so many mother-loving buffs. It's insane, right? Like, where is Super Bosses? Are you not at Super Bosses? No, because this is technically a Z movie. I'm a little silly. Give me a second. Okay, so Super Bosses, right? We talk about Rose and the buffs that happened after Rose. We're going to call it the pre and post Rose era here. So we have Rose. who is like, what is this team looking like in the pre-Rose era? And we're going to be counting JP in this case. We have Yu, we have Broly, right? We have Ribrianne Kakunsa, we have Zamasu, we have the EZA for the Broly trio, we have the EZA for Goku Black, we have Yu, I guess, and that's about it, right? Like that's about where the team kind of rounds out. And then we go to the post-Rose era. We have Rose himself, we have Jiren, we have Cell Max, right? Like we have the introduction of Topo. This free-to-play hit is really good. The kind of Polar Bear in Arlington, Texas, but he is really good, right? That Kefla EZA, like you get the idea, right? Like this team we got Ani Laza. No, I'm kidding. But we got a bunch of buffs for this team in a really rapid succession, right? So this guy all of a sudden had so much help, and then he looked good. And they finally got him to a point of relevancy, and then he tapers off a little bit, right? With power creep and stuff like that, just the way that things went. So with Rose, I think that he works really well with the Super Bosses team, but his big issue, I always love making this joke when I talk about the Super Bosses team, but it's literally like a clash of domains, and I'm not just lying, right? It's Fusion Zamasu has his own domain. Broly has a domain, right? This Rose has a domain. And so because domains can't overlap, it is extremely difficult to efficiently get all three out, right? These are not just regular active skills where you can swipe up, swipe up, swipe up, right? This is like, okay, we're in this domain for X amount of turns. We're going to have to wait a bit. Which one do I want to use? Do I want to get the hyper offensive nature of Broly's? Do I want to get the defensive nature of Zamasu's? Or do I want to use Rose's, who's kind of in the middle, right? You're going to doing all these attacks. So that is something that you have to keep in mind. And with that being said, I just don't think that the Super Bosses team is like kind of up to par with some of the other teams that we are talking about right now. And it's just sort of the way that things went. So that's why I have Rose in the S tier, a very good unit, right? All the units on this list are good. And it's just some are better than others. So Rose in S, let's go ahead and move on to the next character I have in the S tier. And that is going to be Topo. Now with Topo, you guys know his biggest restriction, I think if he was more centered towards Tournament of Power over Special Pose, I'd like this character a lot more. I think that he has a lot of potential, and I like the way that he is designed. But again, it's just literally that one thing, right? It's just that Special Pose restriction. Now, it's not too bad because it's only 2. And Defenders of Justice. So like Defenders of Justice is pretty easy to get, but I just don't like it's always frustrating. Like this is literally like, because this is just the way the game is now, right? Characters, 90% of the time, just the way that these characters are being designed, they are just set up to be restricted, right? You're restricted, right? It's like, this is kind of a bad example of like characters to look at, but like you're restricted, he's restricted a little bit. We already know that you're restricted, right? It's like you're restricted with Universe 6 stuff. You're restricted to having a Kale or a Khalifa on the side. You're restricted. Like it's just modern design is usually kind of leaning towards characters needing like characters of other categories. And I think that is sort of just their way of sort of trying for like, I think in a way of like fun game design, it is a healthy mechanic in the sense of they want you using teams that feel like immersive to the characters. And it's like, oh, you want to make Topo look extremely good and put him in his best situation. Well, guess what? Topo didn't fight alongside Beast Gohan. He didn't fight alongside UI Goku, right? He fought alongside Jiren. He fought alongside Dispo. He fought alongside Coquette, right? And stuff like that. So Casserole. I'm just naming all the U11 characters I can name, but that is sort of where you kind of run into this conflict of interest where it's like this character you want to run with other characters that fit the bill. So I think that it's fun. I think the game is more fun that way. So that way you're just not always running the same team all the time. But it also can lead to frustrating things like this where you need like an essential buff. Like this is essential, right? Damage received and guard, like the extra damage reduction, essential. Guard, essential, especially at the beginning of the fight before you can transform, right? I think that is something that you have to keep in mind. And with this restriction, it kind of holds him back from being higher up on like the S+ tier. And that is why I have him down here. But that isn't to say that the character is bad. It is just to say that I think he could have been better. So that is why I have him at S. Let's go ahead and move on to the next character. And this one is going to be Majin Buu. I have him in the S tier. And again, I think he is good, but I am going to put him right here. Now with Majin Buu, I don't need to go like too in depth with the kit. I think you guys understand how he works. He is a defensive stacker. He has guard. He's doing a bunch of supers. He has potential Ghost Usher ability, or not a potential, but he has that Ghost Usher ability with his active skill. He also has a revive. Now, the biggest thing, whenever I talk about this Fat Buu, we always got to talk about it in case it's your first time being around here. He has an issue of it's tough to kill him. And usually you would be like, oh, that's awesome. Like he's not going to lose you the run. Well, here's the problem, right? Defensively, he tanks too well. And I know that sounds crazy, but just listen to me here, all right? Pay attention, right? He tanks super attacks that are supposed to take him out, right? And what happens a lot of the times, if you tank a super that's like 2 million, 3 million, there's a good chance tanking it is hitting you for 530k and you still have 145,000, 150,000 HP left, all right? And guess what that means? If he's in slot 1, that means the enemy is more than likely still doing 7 to 8 normals outside of that super, or potentially supering again. So you get out of this Boo takes the damage, he tanks it, you're like, yes, let's go, Boo, you're a tank. But then you have another character who's going to take damage from the normals. And sometimes you're relying on this Boo to revive. And when he tanks the super for 550k, and then the other character takes 150,000, you still lose, because this is not a universal revive. This is the same thing as Metal Cooler, where he needs to be the one that takes the hit. And if he doesn't take the KO hit, then you aren't going to revive. And that leads to a problem. He's almost too good for his own good defensively. So it makes that revive, which essentially can lose you, or like save your run, right? A second chance is always better than no second chance. It can potentially lead to a lot of issues. So that is why I have this guy down a little bit lower. I think he works well low-key on the new Heroes Goku team, which might sound surprising, but it does work out in a way. So that's why I have him in S. If you want to put him up in S+, that's fine. I'm just trying to keep the tiers a little bit even. So that is where I have him. Now, let's go ahead and get started with the S+ tier. Now, the S+ tier, Roshi. I think Roshi is extremely formidable. I really like the support that he's providing. He's doing a lot offensively, he's doing a lot defensively, and the support that he is giving to some of the best characters in the game on Turtle School. If we look at Turtle School, how can I pull this up quickly, right? We go here, but like Turtle School, like who do you, when you think of Turtle School and like the Kamehameha, who do you think? Goku, right? So when you have a character like Goku here, who's going to be doing who's on the Turtle School team, you can give UI Gokus, you can give all these funky Gokus, right? Turtle School buffs like out the wazoo with Roshi, and so that leads to just these characters looking a lot better, right? This is like one of the damn near 10 best units in the game. This character I'd still argue is top 10. This is a very good TUR, right? This Super Saiyan, it's tough, right? Like this guy free to play is really good. But then we get to the TURs, we're going to be talking about him later. He is on this list, right? This Grandpa Gohan is really good, believe it or not. This guy, when he gets his EZA, like I said, we'll be talking about him later. But you see like some of these characters like UI Goku and this UI Goku are essential on any team they're on, right? So like if you're running this guy next to Roshi, like it's an essential character. So he is going to be giving support to make them look even better. So I think that is valid to have him up here with the support that he's doing. Not usually would you like your leader characters to be floaters, but sometimes it works out that way. That is why I have him up here, the support that he is giving. I just think that he can look really impressive, and he makes literally like 2 of the like best units in the game look even better. So that is why I have him up here. So next up on the S+ tier, we are going to be talking about this Vegeta. You guys know I've talked about him. Builds up offensively really quick, builds up defensively really quick, and just overall is a well-designed all-around unit. I'm a big fan of the design for this character. He is like a Walmart version of the Super Saiyan leader skill, right? For like the trio, the Super Saiyan trio leader skill. If you want to run a Super Saiyan's team and you don't have either of the Super Saiyan trios, this guy is a nice consolation prize. You could slide him in, and then you are just going to be a little bit more restricted with how you can run the team. But I think he works out really well. So I'm not going to talk about him too much, and we're not going to talk a ton about these next 3 characters, just because I don't want to keep you here all day. But you know, this Vegeta, I think he is really good. So let's go ahead and get into the Z tier. Now, with the Z tier, these are the 3 best TURs in the game, so I can just put them all up here at once. You guys know who they're going to be. And if I had to order them, I think I would do something like this. So, what do we have here, right? This shouldn't have been F tier, by the way. Like, this means nothing. So, here's the 3 that we got, right? Slug. I really like the way the Slug is designed. He's got the damage reduction, he's got the support, offensively he looks good, defensively he looks good. Just working through that damage reduction is just huge, right? So if we pull up movie bosses, right? Like we'll just talk about Slug individually. I think that's important just so we're kind of all on the same page here. Like, again, this isn't ranked, but I think you could make the argument for all 3 of these characters being the #1 TUR, and that is why they're up here. But with Slug specifically, I am a really big fan of his demonic power category, just because you somehow are able to run him alongside like Beast Gohan and stuff like that. But you guys can see like damage reduction right here. We have extra damage reduction down here. Like there's just a ton, like so 66% damage reduction right off the bat. So we got the extra supers, we're healing, we've got the domain going, right? Like this team, you got the stun chance on the super. He is just all around a really good character, right? We're getting support here. We're making super class enemies more susceptible to damage, and most of the hard fights right now are super class. So, you know, you're running this guy on the demonic power team. You're running him with movie bosses. There are a ton of good movie boss characters. There's a ton of good demonic power characters, and so it just makes it super easy to kind of work with this team, right? So you guys can kind of like see right here already. I didn't know Demigirl led this character or this category. But like I said, this Gohan right here, like top 3, number 1 IMO, right? This character is really good still. This Orange Piccolo still can, you know, Unk still got it. He's doing his thing. This Super Boo really, or this Buhan really good. Talking about him later. So you guys can just see this Boo, like this is a really all around good team with a lot of the best units in the game on it. And then you got on top of that 2 characters that are going to have 66% damage reduction, which is good. Offensively, defensively, they're holding it down. Super Saiyan 3 Goku, it really just kind of comes down to how impressive his turn 1 is. You guys know how much I've talked about this character ad nauseum at this point. The 90% damage reduction on turn 1 is so valuable in the modern content. And even though like he goes from being able to go to slot 1 to being able to be versatile and go into the slot 2 or the slot 3 range, that way he's building up his damage reduction on the supers, and then the other characters that you have around him that are just added to Buu Saga especially, they're going to get better. So this guy's leader skill recently got better because there's a lot of new Majin Buu Saga characters that are good. Alongside that, there are characters that got added to the Buu Saga category that were not on there originally. So that is extremely helpful. Now, last but not least, let's talk about the new character. Again, I have him at the pseudo number 1 quote-unquote spot, just because I didn't want to like continue to talk about Super Saiyan 3 Goku the way that I want, like that we've been talking about him lately. But Permaguard, you guys know this is not common in the I almost said it, but in 2024, right? This is not common. The only issue, it's in my opinion, with this category, like the biggest thing, I don't know what's going on with the auto translation here, but like this is power absorption and this is transformation boost. So being kind of restricted to that the power absorption category is just kind of this character's biggest downfall or downside right now. But all in all, I just really like the way that this character is designed. Look at this, right? Key +2, attack and defense 50% support. Like this is making a lot of characters in the game that needed the help like have it, right? So you think about a character like Majin Buu, you think about a character like Tech Super Buu, right, or Tech Exchange Buu. He's going to be very helpful for, right? Like even like a character coming up, I believe Int Cell is going to be getting anniversary buffs for a limited time, so it'll be really interesting to see how well he works on this team with him. But we have for 6 turns, we're getting extra attack and defense. We're getting from the 7th turn onwards, we're getting dodge chance, high probability of always performs an additional, and then that's a higher chance of being a super. I don't know what's happening with the translations here. Let me go to the global version. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened there, but either way, right? Like even with like what we're talking about here. There we go. That's a little bit easier to read. There we go. An additional attack and defense and chance of performing a critical hit, plus 50%, and its stream class allies 50% support when there's another one. And so it just needs to be 1. Transformation boost, you guys know how good that category is, and power absorption is also really good. And then the more HP remaining when the character receives an attack for the first time in a turn, the greater the additional defensive boost received within the turn. So up to 150% defense if you have high HP. Really hard to take this character out. And then it's just like with the domain, this is where it's like big, right? This is where you got to have the power absorption things, right? So starting from the 6th turn, if you want to get that domain right away, we go into this one right here. He's an orb changer. We got the 70% damage reduction. He's going to be a big tank, right? Additional attack plus 100%. We're getting guaranteed additional supers. Very simple stuff. Recovering HP at the end of the turn. Very valuable things that make this character extremely well designed. So there you guys have it. If you have any disagreements in the comment section below, let me know. Where would you put these characters? Would you move anybody up? Would you move anybody down? I like where this list is, considering we aren't talking about easy A's. So let me know, like I said, down below what you guys think. If you did enjoy today's video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you are new, so that way you don't miss out on any of the Dokkan content that I'm doing around here. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.